Good evening. Good Sunday evening. And welcome to today's edition of, and guess what? I found the name. We found the name. Now, for the younger people, they may not understand. They may have no clue what the name is. But for those who are a little bit on the mature side, and I'm choosing my words very, very carefully, uh, the word is SETI. Do you know what a SETI is? All of my people my age and so forth now. What's a SETI? Well, so the program is going to be called from now on Sunday Settie with Sehon. And if you're too young and you don't know what a Settie is, ask your grandmother, ask your grandfather, ask your elder. Well, your mother might know, depending on the age of your mother. So, welcome and thank you so much for joining. I know this program is highly anticipated because we advertised before that we're going to have this program today. And in studio, we'd have a very special guest. Well, you see, so I don't have to say because he's sitting right next to me. But this evening, we feature the work of my good friend, my brother, Richard Byron-Cox, who's here with us, who's here with me in the UK. And trust me, we've been having a really good time since he has arrived. But let me say good afternoon. Let me welcome Richard. And in the meantime, I am going to encourage you who've already joined to share the live as we would as well. Richard, good afternoon and welcome.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day, good morning, wherever you are in the world and looking at this program. Yes, I'm in Birmingham with the Marshall himself, the one with the plan, the Marshall plan, Sehon Marshall.
Yes.
And
All
I'm
that
happy
work.
to be here. I arrived in Birmingham on Friday morning, and so I've been here for almost 3 days, one can say, and I've had a good time. I want to welcome each and every one of you, wherever you are in the world, today to this show. I'll be sharing the link. Cian is sharing right
I'm
now.
sharing right now,
So you can
yes.
go on Cian's page and he would you would see the link there. But as soon as I'm finished with this introduction, I'd also share it on my page so that you can join. You can just click on the link. But it's a special, well, it's a special Sunday afternoon, evening for me. And I'm pretty honored and grateful to Cian for having me in the studio with him to discuss, as you can see, my latest work. But I want to thank each and every one of you who has joined us and who will be joining us
Keep talking.
um, um, for this show tonight. Um, well, once you're in the presence of the marshal, you have the plan. So, it should be something
Oh, shoot.
special.
I hear that.
And not only that, and just allow me, I'll come back to this, I'm sure, by the end of the show, but I just want to thank all of the people who have done one thing or the other to support um, me and to support my work and to support this show. I've shared it with quite a few people, and many of you have shared what will happen this afternoon, this evening, today, or depending on the time where you are in this world. And I want to really thank you for that. And so I promise you that we will not disappoint you tonight. And when you finish, I'm sure you when we finish, I'm sure you're gonna go out and buy a copy of the story of Pauline Brown.
Well, that's the hope. I mean, the hope is that uh, or viewers or the people who support our program, who support you and I every week would go out and, in fact, by the publication, we're going to be talking about this publication for the next 2 hours, but we'll be talking a little bit more as well about the publication. So again, please uh, join the live. By the way, I'm going to put the link of the book on the comments so that you can click on the comments, click on the link. We're going to pin it, click on it so that if you're interested in purchasing the book, you can get your book at Amazon. All right. Kojo, good evening to you and welcome. We know you're always there with us. Let's see. Let's try and pin this at the top. Okay. All right. So yes, um, the comments, the sorry, not the comments, in the comment section, yes, the link is there. So please, if you have any interest in publishing the book, which you should, supporting the work of Richard, uh, the link is there. It's available on Amazon. Just click the link. You can purchase the book and begin reading. As I said, I got the manuscript of the book even before it was published. So I started to read the book before it was published. And so I am very familiar with the stories in the book. And I can talk to you about my own personal experience, uh, emotionally and so forth, reading the book, and tell you exactly the roller coaster that it took me on when I was reading. So, again, let me welcome everybody to this evening's program. Call your friends, share the live. I see individuals are sharing it already. So call your friends, share the live, let individuals know that this highly anticipated program is on. And this evening, we'll hear more about the story of Pauline Bramble. Richard, uh, before we get into the book, just a little bit about life for you now. I mean, you spent over 25 years or thereabout in the United Nations as an international diplomat. Now you've retired. What does retirement look like for a retired international diplomat after 20 something years of flying around the world?
Yeah. I spent 50 years of my life in total as a diplomat.
Right.
Part of it for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but the majority of it, 26 and a half years, with the United Nations. I didn't retire, but I resigned. I was still too young to actually retire. But I resigned because of the need, not just the want, but the need to fulfill what I think was given to me from birth, which is the ability to write and to tell stories. So, but it has been great so far. I mean, it's been challenging because writing is not, for me, it's simple in terms of it comes naturally, but the wish to do so much because I know I have limited time on this earth like everyone else. And because I know that it has been pressuring. But I mean, if I were to complain, as the Greeks used to say, the gods would be angry with me because I've had a brilliant career. I've both academically and professionally. That at university I was quite successful, and professionally probably I could have been more successful. But knowing me, I think I've done, uh, you know, as much as I wanted to do at that level, and so I left. But since then, I have been traveling around a little bit, up north, down south. As you know, C and I just came back a couple of weeks from Azerbaijan, Baku, and things like that. Special envoy, you had you had a key role to play in that, as you know. But as a special envoy at St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to a special meeting there, and I'm here in Birmingham. So yeah, life is great, and it's always good to be hanging out with you. I don't get into the trouble that you get into. But yeah,
I was waiting on that,
yeah.
Richard. Oh my
So
lord.
far so good. I mean, and as long as I hold, there's one thing I do promise the Vincentian public and the people who know about my writings over the years and so on is that I am determined to add to the Vincentian literary culture once time allows me, meaning if my life belongs that much. But I think we, the Caribbean, has a very great literary culture. What do you talk of Guyana and Andrew Carew and people like Edgar Metalizer and Ricardo Brathwaite, and so on and so forth. Or you talk of Jamaica with Claude McKay or Roger Myers, or you talk of Trinidad and Tobago with Michael Anthony, Samuel Selvon and the great V.S. Naipaul, or you talk of St. Lucia and, Derek Walcott and so on.
Nobel laureate.
Right, yes. So we have a great Caribbean literary culture. St. Vincent's addition to that has been people like Shakin, the great Shakin. Ralph Gonzalez himself politically has written quite a lot over the last, say, 25 years. And we've had, bits and pieces otherwise. Even, we've had poets and so on, you know, Danny Williams and so on. So I think one of the things I would, one of the reasons I left the United Nations and decided to um, do what I'm doing is because I want to add to the literary and intellectual culture in this democratic days. It's been going far. It's been going good so far.
All right. Now, if you notice that we have the book standing in front of, so you're seeing the cover of the book. This is the front cover of the book, and again, the link is in the comments. So, if at any time during the discussion you want to decide, the urge to get it is strong, just click on the link, leads you directly to the page on Amazon. Let me put it up here as well. Yes, right, and you would be able to get that copy. All right. Now, Richard, tell us a little bit about Richard the Little Boy, because many individuals now, over the last couple of years, because of your activism, your social commentary, and so forth, are familiar with Richard Cox, the professor, the PhD, the international man, and so forth. But many may not. I think I want to give a glimpse of Richard the Little Boy, where it all started, where you were born, where you grew up, and maybe if those early years had any influences in terms of literature and writing, you can let us know about those as well.
Yeah, I think my childhood is probably the greatest influence on my writing. Throughout my life, those people who've read, for example, Mama Stairs in vain, and they've all trying to figure out who is the influence. You can't say Shakespeare, you can't say it's Dickens, you can't say it's Michael Anthony, you can't say it's Roger Myers, because I don't write like anybody else, Uh, you can't say it's the great American writer who wrote The Woman and the Sea, Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway. You can't say that. My writing is quite different. And the reason for this is because of my childhood. Now, as a boy, I grew up. I spent most of my childhood years in a place called Redemption Shops, which is in Kingston, in St. Vincent, most of it. And I, I am a child of a particular childhood, so to speak, a very particular kind of childhood, which, a matter of fact, one of my sisters, who's dead now, Deva Byron-Cox, when she read Mama Stairs, she said, the greatest book you'll ever write is a book about your life. So my childhood was inauspicious, if you want to put it that way, but it taught me a lot. And I can tell you this, that I actually wrote the actual conscious writing, the first time I wrote something called Darkness, right? And I look back at this now, and I realize that even then, as a child, um, you know, life and its influence, the things that I did, you know, had such a profound impact on my mind. Because can you think of this, that an 8-year-old boy would write a poem, and it is called Darkness, not beauty, not flower, anything but darkness, and and I can say it for you. It goes like this: I never really like the night because it fills me up with fright.
No, let me not get into the darkness. No,
You know?
no, and I'll tell you why. Because there are some themes I want to explore in greater detail further down.
Yeah,
So without being repetitive, but go ahead.
But what I wanted to say is
Yes.
this, that writing for me has a philosophical base,
Okay.
right? And it has an evidence base, if you want, right?
Right.
An experience base, right? But for some strange reason, from a very early childhood, from my very early childhood, I was able to sort of translate these physical things, right, into philosophy, into writing. Later in life, when I got to university and when I began to write more seriously for newspapers and so on, I didn't realize it. But I didn't realize it at the time. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay. All right. Now, people are logging on and they say, good afternoon. My sister is on. Joanne Richardson is on. Abigail, Manice, Phyllis, Rochelle, all are on. Good evening. You can shout us up if you want us to acknowledge you. That's fine. And if you have any questions for Richard directly, I'll be taking your questions as well. So please just type them in the comments area, and I would ask Richard those questions. Kojo says he hoped to get his book signed, and he says he reminds you from Nine Steps.
Yes.
That was the first time we saw you with a book sitting there reading on Nine Steps,
Yes.
right? And Kojo, I really think it's more than 9 steps, but anyhow, because I've gone those steps quite a few times, and trust me, it's more than 9,
Yes.
right? So Richard, let me ask though, because I've read Mama's Tears,
Yeah.
significant parts of it,
Yeah.
similar with this book. And you are able to incorporate a lot of the life of, I would say, rural St. Vincent and the Grenadines,
Yeah.
right? Or it might be suburban St. Vincent as well, but more in the depressed suburban areas, right? And you say that is the life that is your childhood experience. Um, how much of your life did you spend outside of Kingstown of Redemption Chapel? Because some of the experiences in the books, you ain't get them in Redemption Chapels. Full stop.
No, actually, I'll tell you this. In Mama's Days, the third story is called Satu Spain.
Yes.
And Mr.
Yes.
Peniston's
Yes.
Verdict.
Yes.
And a very close friend of mine, I think it was Sunday evening, we went for a drive. And I said, I'm going to take you, I want us to go to Spring Village.
Would you like some?
Yes,
Mike?
oh, sure.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Wonderful.
I always used to wonder what you have in this cup.
Well, no, you know, and you know it's nothing sinister. So stop spreading and telling people things. Stop. Let the redemption shops part of it coming out there.
But anyway, the thing is that this friend of mine and who loved Mama's Days so much, and we went around and went to Spring Village, and I said, look at this, and what does it tell you? And this person couldn't figure it out. I should think of Satu immediately. The river, and everything. Because if you remember, you were from Leeward, so you would remember there was a place called Garden Yard.
Yes, there is a place called Garden.
Right, and it was only white people usually there at them. Our white people.
Yes.
And Satu was a half-white boy.
Okay.
His father was from that side of the river, the Spring Village River. You understand? While his mother was from the Spring Village area. And this person was like, oh my God. Shocked, totally shocked, Now, so let's answer your question. Rural St. Vincent, from since I was a very small child, had a great influence on me. I remember you, Mr. Martin, and I, went to Spring Village. And when you realized I could mention people's names and could talk to people in the village and to say, Owner James.
What is supposed to live and what is supposed to and so on and so on.
You were so shocked.
Absolutely.
And then I could tell you about Cherry Smith bus and all of these things, if you remember. And you had to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to leave. And you were like, but you're from town, right? So, no, two fundamental things I think I would like to share with our people as they listen to me tonight. One is that rural St. Vincent, I have never known anything more beautiful in terms of natural life. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever eat Jabakuyam and Bobas and all that, right? But rural St. Vincent is the most beautiful thing I have ever known, and I've traveled the world. I've been all over the world. But something that really relates to my heart, rural St. Vincent. Beautiful place. Understand? That's the first thing I want to say. And the second thing I want to say is that the greatest peace I have ever known. And I think that's how I began writing, actually, because I used to be on an estate called Dime when I was a little boy.
Okay.
And in Dime, I was alone there because everybody else were grown people, And I think that's where my writing actually began. And that's why you find that all of my work, Mama's Days itself, right? Apart from the Calypso tent, it is basically rural. The whole book is rural. So rural St. Vincent has played a great part in formulating the thoughts of the man who write these books.
Mm. Now, you've spoken about the philosophy of it and all of those things and peace. But I also want to know how much of it was as a form of escape. How much of uh, writing was a form of your escape from whether it's your reality situations, and so it was a bit of an avenue for you to maybe hide or empty yourself and so forth.
Well, I was a crippled boy when I was a child. And in those days, people didn't relate to crippled people, in a very friendly manner. And once you were physically crippled, you people felt there was no use to you. But somehow or the other, I figured I could write. I don't know how I figured this thing out, but I think I can write. And I was trying to say my point of darkness, and you stopped me. But I'm not going to tell you to stop me now.
Sit down, sit
No,
down, sit
to give you
down.
just one line
Yes.
of the second poem I wrote. And at that time, I was still 8 years old. And it's called Girls. I'll just give you one verse. It goes like this: all them girls today, see them on display. Just up in squeeze up jeans, all them fighting scenes. Some from the country and some from the town. In eyeshadow and lipstick, looking just like clown. I wrote those things as an 8-year-old boy. Now, I say this to say that uh, probably you're right. It was an avenue in which I can express myself, but an avenue that I could keep quiet. In other words, I had them. Nobody saw it. It's not like going on stage to sing, because I had a very good voice as a child, a singing voice as a child, and or playing cricket, which I couldn't do. To this day, I don't know how to play dominoes and those things. I don't know these things. So it was. I think that was the first thing. It was an avenue for me to express myself, but only to myself. But there was something else there. I think it was. I think I spoke to myself a lot when I was a child. I spoke to myself a lot. And in speaking to myself, I did it through my writing. So I think, yes, it was something like that.
Well, the truth is, Richard, I speak to myself as an adult even now. I still do. I remember. I remember. By the way, for those of you, Jill and the others who are watching Gemma, and Val and so on, if you're watching Darky and the others, Richard was telling me the other day that he spent a lot of time in Chateaubriand, and he mentioned names like Cunning and Ali
Yeah,
and
Bonnie
Bonnie and
and
so forth. So
and how I actually knew that there was a second shafts in St. Vincent.
right,
Because
right,
I went up to shafts. In those days, there was no bridge across the river. You had to jump stones. And so
right,
I
right.
think it was actually terribly shocked.
That he knew,
It's
because
terribly
these are
shocked.
people I know I'm from the community and so on. I didn't realize that he was so exposed and knowledgeable about the area. As a matter of fact, he said the first time he got a bike was in Chateaubriand.
It over a
So,
bank.
well, he was always clumsy. Yeah, and so much of
Went
good, much
over a
of good
bank.
bike. But so those
Yeah.
other experiences, Richard, as a child, and you poured some of it into your writing.
Yeah.
As you grew, though, um, did you explore any other? You said you had a singing voice. Did you
Yeah.
explore any other aspects? There was writing, yes, you said, but you said
No,
singing.
no. I never did anything else. A matter of fact, I was afraid of myself as a child because anytime you try to do anything because you're crippled, everybody just pull you down. So you sort of wanted to shelter yourself, you know.
Mm,
And the way to shelter yourself was to stay away from people,
right.
right? So that is what happened. But somehow or the other, again, the writing, as I said, was a way of talking to myself. But um, probably because of my childhood, I developed a very serious sense of justice, and so I became a socialist at a very early age, even before I knew what the word socialism meant. And my poetry, by the time I hit 14 years old, my poetry became seriously political. and about serious political issues, right? At that time, by the time I was in my early teens, uh, the struggle, the battle to free Mandela, the battle to fight against against apartheid in South Africa, had mushroomed and become full blown. And I wrote poems like that. I go down in South Africa and things like that, and the people get freedom. I would, and so what I'm saying is that the poetry I began writing, it was poetry at the time, no story. The poetry I began writing was poetry now that reflected the political and philosophical influences. And by that time, I was meeting people like Mike Brown, who became a minister of education. I was being influenced by Renard Rose, the socialists in our country. Uh, Dr. Gonzalez, I didn't know.
Jomo Thomas?
No, not Jomo Thomas. No. But I knew Jomo.
So you say that Jomo was not one of your influences?
No. Jomo never influenced me. Jomo's a little bit older than me. He's not much older than I am, so he didn't greatly influence me. But I became very close to Arthur Bob as well, right? And they had great influence on me. And then, of course, by 79, the Grenada Revolution taking place, and Maurice Bishop came to power with the Nigerian movement in Grenada. And I was sent there by VY, which was the Vanguard Youth organization of the UPM. And I met Maurice Bishop personally.
Okay.
And Maurice predicted that one day I was going to be something special. Maurice actually told me that. So I think all of those things influenced me. And as I said, I wrote poetry. And I remember, just to give two lines, for example, of that I go down in South Africa. It went like, I remember blacks can't go school. Them can't see doctors. White want on black food. So they could rule forever. Right? Black have to run or they will get shut down. To go down in South Africa where black people are suffer. I was writing this as a 14-year-old. So what I'm trying to show you is that when I didn't do anything else, because I wasn't good at cricket, I wasn't good at football, I wasn't good at anything. Somehow or the other, everything else went into writing, so to speak.
Is there any thoughts in your head of one day putting together an anthology of the poems that you've written over the years?
Yeah, I mean,
because it was your first love, and,
yeah,
and so you want to.
It's still. I've written. I still write poetry. Most people don't know this. I still write poetry, and actually, Mama's Tears was published because of poetry, which we can get into.
Okay.
But I will definitely one day publish this. But there's just so much work I have to write, so much work I have to publish, because I have at least 7 books mentally prepared.
Well, as you said at the beginning of the program, you resigned
just to
do the work.
Yeah, just to do this. So
you can't complain now.
Yeah.
Do you work?
So there's just so much. As you know, I was telling you about Candy and the rum bottle.
Yes. I mean, it really is of no consequence because I don't drink rum. So, I mean, rum bottle and Tantagene is between you and Tantagene. But yes.
It's a great book,
yes.
And it's finished. It's just a matter of editing the book and writing and publishing it. So there's just so much work. But what I'm trying to say is that, no, I was never good at dominoes. I was never good at, I was never good at anything. Okay? And the only board game I can actually play is chess. I can't. Okay. I don't know how to play.
Okay.
Even ordinary card games, I don't know. Okay. I can't play these things. So I think all of my energies, all of my creative, if you want to put it that way, innovative energies went into writing.
Now, we are chatting with Richard about the launch of his new book, but we are getting a little history of the man himself. And also, before we even get to this book, the second one, because there's a first one, Where Mama Stays in Vain, before we get into the story of Pauline Bramble, and I tell you, now let me tell you, it's the story of Pauline Bramble is a book that meanders, in my view, in a way that, there are a number of short stories, all interconnected, but it takes you to the Future brings you back, carry you crossways and so on, and it fits together beautifully. You have to read this book. But before we get to this book, we're going to talk a little bit about Mama Stairs as well. So again, as we're here, as you're here, and I see you guys on the live is building. Please continue to invite people, continue to share it. We're discussing this book with Richard. And listen, the comment is there. That comment that you see on the screen, it's in the comments. That is where you can get the book on Amazon. Go get the book. Richard plans, and you can hear more about this on doing a tour. He's going to be in the US, he's going to be in Canada, he's going to be in the UK, he's going to be in Asia. So once you have your copy and he's there for the tour, you can always get your copy signed. All right. He will write my name inside here as well too. So you can put in my name inside it for you. Yeah, so his name and my name. Yeah, so don't worry.
Just to say before you go on, don't forget your thought. But yes, Coach Jail, my plan is that once I come to New York, I'll be coming to America. Not like Eddie Murphy, but I'll be coming to America sometime after the 20th of October. And
Richard,
I'm going to fly to California just to sign your book.
could you understand it? This man, this coach, you asked me when I stopped drinking. You ever know you drinking? Coach,
No,
Coach,
Then please, that's
Okay.
between you and Coach Joe. Good night,
What
Coach Joe,
kind of-
and good night. I don't have my computer in front of me. I'm
What
sorry, so
kind of-
I can't see exactly who's on the line.
what kind of blasphemy and where's the other word? Where's the legal word?
That's between you and
You
Coach
go
Joe.
on with
No,
me.
no, no,
I-
no, please, no.
I'm Kamala Harris must be your lawyer, eh? So you go on with me. I'm your husband. You go on with me. It's okay, no problem. No problem. All right. Now, before we even get to the
To
books,
Romaine Brown,
the
yes.
books,
Okay, yes.
you did
Uh-huh.
a lot of writing for newspapers and so forth,
Yes,
critical
a lot,
writing.
a lot.
Not as much now, but a lot then.
But I'm going back there soon. Very, very soon.
What drove that? What drove you to get into that type of thing,
Well,
though?
yeah, in my very, very early 20s, just after turning 20, I went to Moscow to study. I was the first Vincentian to one of two who went to Moscow to study. And while I was there, I continued to write poetry, but I was in a new society, a society which was completely different from the one I
Mhm.
came from. And somehow I felt I needed to say something to the people at home about this, you know. And I wrote an article, and it was a Guyanese ambassador, and they had this thing at they had a cultural event, and I went there and sang and so on. And he came over to me and he said, "Oh, you have such a good voice," and la la la, and began talking. He said, "Oh, what are you studying?" And I told him and so on. And he said, "You should write." And I said, "Well, I actually do some writing." He said, "You do?" And I said, "Yes." I had written a couple of pieces, but never sent them to the newspaper. And he said, "Can I see it?" And he said, "You should publish these things in the newspaper." So it was a Guyanese ambassador who actually first said, and me as a young man, as a boy at that time, because, to my age now, for an ambassador to say that to me was, wow, wow, I can actually do this. And so that is when it was born. And so by the time I returned home from university, I had this mission now to write for the newspapers. And a lot of my writing, most of it is political, but a lot of it has been philosophical, And I was writing up to a couple of months ago regularly, as I had returned to regular writing. But then the book consumed me. I had to publish this book, and there was just so much, there's still so much, as you know, there's just so much work that I have to do just for this book alone that I had to give up that for a while, but I'll be returning to writing for the newspapers shortly, But newspaper writing is it's very different, and this is something that happens to me naturally, and I think I need to say this to people. When I write literature, the language I use, and you must have noticed that it's completely different from me writing for the newspapers, and this is because of my training. So in this book, you would not find a single expression in Latin, or in French, or in Spanish, or in Russian, or in Italian. You wouldn't, right? Or in Bulgarian, and or in German. In my writing for the newspapers, it's quite often, especially Latin. You would see so many Latin expressions. And I remember when I went downstairs and I asked somebody to read, This person said to me, Jesus, when I have to read your book, Richard Byron-Cox, I have to get a ladder. So, he said, "The ladder that came up to understand what you writing. You want me to read it to book?" I said, please, just try. And he was so shocked. Complete different language. You understand? I am, for want of a better word, the philosopher, the ideologue, and so on. When I'm writing for the newspapers, when I write literature, oh no, this is a story, this is experience, this is life, this is love, this is pain, this is suffering, this is laughter. So my language when I write for the newspapers and when I write for law books,
Your
because as
style. Mm.
yeah, style and language, the
Because
language
it's still
itself,
English.
right?
It's English.
No, what I mean in terms of the terminology
I
that I
know, right?
use,
I know.
because I have made many, many contributions to quite a lot of international levels,
Mm.
because I was a visiting professor at the University of Cologne
Mhm.
and things like that. And my language there is completely different from literature.
Now, I read your writing in the newspaper. I've read books from you as well, your books, and I can attest to that. The style is completely different. As a matter of fact, I critique your writing style in newspapers very often. I say, "Boss man, too often,
Very high flow.
yeah, the audience they have may not even get
Yeah,
what you're saying, you know, because of the expressions and like you say,
yeah,
the use of philosophy and so on. But because uh, I don't think that enough of us read as much in our society,
hmm,
and so people read for very short periods. They read very short things, and
yeah,
so and I'm talking generally speaking. I'm not criticizing anybody in particular, but that's just one of the things I think. So I know the style is quite different
yeah.
when you are doing this book than when you are doing the articles in newspaper. To Mama Stairs in Vain, what was the idea behind the title, which is a story, of
Yeah.
course? What is the idea behind the title? Warm, and it's kind of like a question, and I didn't realize that
It's a question.
until
And it,
I got the book.
yeah.
Warm Mama Stairs in
It's
Vain,
vain. Yeah.
like your
Yes.
mama a
It is vain.
cry
Yes.
in
Vain.
vain. Yeah,
Yeah.
waste your water.
Yes.
Were they in vain?
Yeah.
Is it something, Richard, where one questions whether or not they are in effect the kind of person that their mother will be proud of?
Well, I mean, if I were to tell people the depth of that, I think everybody's going to be shocked. I'm not here to shock anybody. But um, what's his name? I don't remember his name now, but you will remember. He wrote a book called My Mother Who Fathered Me. Um, it's just his name doesn't ring a bell, but people who listen to us now will know this. My Mother Who Fathered Me. And what he's talking about is the role that Caribbean mothers play in making the men that we have today, you know. And if you read Lamins in the Castle of My Skin, it is there as well. And there are many others like that. And in my life, people who were not my biological mother, but mothers, but were mothered to me in one way or the other. These people, some of these people saw my childhood as a boy, because as I said, I was a crippled boy, and society wasn't kind to a crippled boy in those days. We have come a long way now. And these people sort of, some of these people inspired me one way or the other. And they didn't notice. They didn't notice. And I think that's the first thing that inspired the name of it. There's a deeper thing which I would not say because I think it would shock people. But I think that is one of the things that inspired it. But more than anything else, I wanted for our Caribbean people understand that we belong to a civilization, and that civilization, more than anything else, was created by women. More than anything else. You understand? Yes, the man build, I don't know, houses and so on and so on. But the foundation, the principles on which we live, all of us, including you, the things that you value more. Yes, you admire your father and his contributions, so on and so on. But your sense of love, your sense of goodness, your sense of sharing,
Mm.
your sense of kindness. For the majority of us, that came from our mothers. You understand? And that is what builds a society. You see, and as you know, the old sages say that the hand that rocks the cradle, you
There's a
understand,
hand that rules the world.
right? Fathers didn't rock the cradle, mothers did. And so for me, this was an appreciation for our mothers who made us who we are, but more than anything else, who made this civilization what it is. That is what I was trying to say.
Mm. How what was the general reception like to O Mama Stairs?
I mean, well, um, if I may, Mama States came about in a very, very funny way. One day, when I was working at United Nations, one of my colleagues called me and said, "Look, I have an intern here, and this person is a lawyer and would like some advice and so on. And the best lawyer I know in this place is you. So could you be kind enough to, advise?" I said, "Sure." This young lady came up, you know, and she knocked. And I said, "Please come in." She sat. And she said, "I know you." And I said, "No, you don't know me. I've never met you in my life." She said, "I'm sure I know you." I said, "No, you don't know me." Anyway, um, she came, she talked, la la la, she left. And then this colleague of mine called me and said, "Oh, you write law books and so on." I said, "I contribute to law books." She said, "Oh, yes, that's it." My intern came and said, I know him, and but I couldn't figure it out. His writing is recommended reading, you understand,
Mm.
on several issues of international law, in particular sustainable development. And she said, "I know you write like that." I said, "Yeah, yeah." So, "Do you write anything else?" I said, "Yeah, I write for newspapers and so on." So she said, "Send me something down, let me see." And so I sent it down. And she said, "Do you write anything else?" I have a poem called The Gift. It was Christmas time. I say, "Yes, I write poems as well." To send me something. And I sent the gift. And this lady, she's a French woman. Her name is Veronique City. She said, "May I use it, please, on my cards for my family and so on?" I said, "With one understanding that you see, this is Richard Byron-Cox as well. We can do stuff." And she shared it with, her family and
Mm-hmm.
friends and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
"This man, you say he writes?" I was like, "Yeah, you know." And then she said, "Share me. Do you do other things?" And I said, "Yeah, I write stories and so on." I sent, if you remember, the second story in Anastasia is called How Jacob Met Lucifer.
Mm.
I sent it to her a Friday evening. Monday morning, she came to my office and said, "You have to publish this thing. You have to. You can die anytime." And he would die, and the world would never know. "No, please, 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 please." You know? And then I sent her Mama Stairs. And she said, "I read it with probably on my life." It's in the book actually. It's because
Mm.
my books have it
Mm.
on it.
Mm.
She
Mm.
said,
Mm.
"I read it, I cried like a child. Did this happen to you?" And I said, "Why you ask that?" I said, "Nobody could write something like that if it didn't happen to them. It is impossible."
Mm.
So this was the board of Mama Stairs. And I remember, I wouldn't call this person's name but there is a person who contributes to the newspapers in St. Vincent. And I sent Mama Stairs to that person. And he read the first four stories. He said this, brilliantly written, but they're not your stories. Your grandmother told you them, and you were just bright enough to remember them, as a child. Then he began Mama Stairs, and I didn't hear from him. A month passed, I didn't hear from him. Another month passed, I didn't hear from him. And so I called him. And I went to see him. He wasn't home. His wife said to me, "What did you do to my husband?" And I said, "What?" He said, "What did you do to my husband?" I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "I woke up one night and my husband was not on the bed." And I went looking for him, and he was in the living room with this book in his hand. And he was crying. I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, he was crying." And he told her he actually wrote it. He actually wrote this book. He wrote this book because he is telling my story, and I never told it to anybody, not even to you. Nobody knew it. So how the hell did he know my story?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the response to Mama Stairs. And you can see it in the book. People from around the world who've read it. Because I put the comments in there.
Yes.
From around the world have said it's a contribution to world literature. It's not a contribution to Vincent, West Indian literature. And so that actually shook me, I must say. That actually shook me. And it was Mama Stairs that made me decide I would have to leave the United Nations one day. Because it was impossible for me to write seriously and get these things done and do the high power job. You know what I was doing at the UN.
Yes.
It just took too much out of me. It would have killed me.
Mm.
And so I had to leave.
I'm going to have to ask you this, Richard, because I know this personally, and many individuals do not know this, but I know this because of our relationship. I know you've made attempts to have this book as part of reading for uh, CXC,
Yes.
even for St. Vincent, but at least
Yes.
for CXC for literature, based on recommendations
Yes.
of individuals
Yes.
who have been at that level,
Yes.
who've been part of the board
Yeah.
that suggested books for CXC and so
Yes.
forth, and you've tried, and your response has been treated with a very trite type of your actions, sorry, have been treated in a very trite way, almost flippant disregard of your work and your efforts.
Yeah.
How did, well, let me not put the words in your mouth.
Don't
What do
ask the
you?
leading question.
That's the point. That's the point. So that's exactly where I stop. That's exactly where I
Don't
stop.
ask the leading
That's
question.
exactly where I stop because I didn't want to put the word in your mouth. So that's exactly where I stop. Describe for us your own feeling
Yeah.
on that response, to that response given to a piece of work that, by all indications, and I'm not just talking about the people around the world who've done it,
Yeah.
but Vincentians who know literature, who've read this book, who've served on CXC board, that choose these books, have said this book belongs there.
Yes.
Describe for us your own feeling now,
Yeah.
for how
Yes,
that has been
I
treated.
understand the question. Let me just say this: the first person actually um, said that this book should be on the TXC list of literature books was a Grenadian woman, and I had gone to Grenada. As I said, Maurice Bishop influenced me greatly. I love Maurice greatly, and so when I published Mama's Stairs, there were some people I honored, and Maurice was one of those. And I went to Grenada to do a special launch. And this lady, who was then, I think, head of the Grenadian Museum, she said, "This book," she was the first person who said, "This book belongs on the CXC list." I read it, and you're an amazing writer. And but I know this lady is not going to be angry for me to call her name because she said so publicly as well, I think. Ambassador Andrea Bowman, who's our ambassador in Taiwan,
Yes.
right? As you know, she's trained in literature,
Yes.
for master's degree and things like that, and was head of the girls' high school and things like that, and taught at the college. When I wrote Mama Stairs, I wanted Mrs. Bowman, at the time, she wasn't Her Excellency, to read the book. Mrs. Bowman said she was busy and she didn't want to read it. Not that she didn't want to read it, but
She
was
busy.
yes.
Right.
But then I decided to write this book. But I wanted to make sure that she committed to reading this book. You understand what I'm saying? So I wrote to her husband, Lennox, who's my friend, said, Lennox. And Lennox said, "Richard, you sure you want Andrea to read your book?" Andrea is he very critical, Andrea does not mince her words. I said, "Yes, Lennox. If my work is any good, she's the best person." He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yes." So he then told her, and she said, "Dr. Byron-Cox," she asked that call, "Dr. Byron-Cox, I am so sorry. I haven't even read Mama Stairs." And he answered, "I am never been so insulted in my life. I'm just fallen. And so on. And she promised that she read my mistakes. And she read story number one. And she told me, as you would recall, story number one is a dead man living with us.
Yes.
And she told me, she said, Dr. Cox, you had me looking out my window.
I remember that story. That story.
You had me
Yes,
looking
I
out
remember
my
that story.
window.
Then that's
So on and
it's the kind of story you see.
You know?
I sat on the bed and I remember reading that and so on. And it's like, I don't know if it's what, but like your head raising, like your head,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, what? What's going on? I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious.
You know? And then she read Satu, and she was just bowled over by Satu. But then she read not Satu, she read Jaffa number 2.
Mhm,
She
mhm.
read them in order. And
Okay.
then she read Satu, Pain and Miss Penicillin Burden, which I think is if there's any genius in my writing, it is that story. Yeah? Because I take you as you used the word earlier, you said meandering. You
Mm.
know, I take you meandering, and then at the very last moment, I let out the secret. And she was like, you know, I couldn't figure out how this boy could have done all of this. And then I figured it. The last moment you let out, the pigmentocracy. Those are her exact words, the pigmentocracy. And I said, you know, Mrs. Bowman, a colleague of yours at the girls' high school, who just recently read this book, said that it belongs on the sexy list. And she said, Dr. Cox, I wanted to say that from the second story. You have written an amazing piece of work. And I sat on the CXC Council for 10 years representing civilians, and I'm telling you, this book belongs there. I've spoken to 3 ministers of education, 3. One of them, you said they're treating flippantly, I think with blatant disregard and contempt. That's it. That is how I put it. They probably see this as it's about Richard Byron-Cox. To the hell with Richard Byron-Cox. Who the hell am I? Just a human being. Listen to me. The thing is this, and we have to understand. As I said when you asked me my first question, I am determined to add something to the literary culture, the intellectual literary culture of this country. Now, this book, if it gets on to, if it were ever to get on to CXC, it would be probably the first book from the OECS. You understand? To get on to CXC, because everything is from Jamaica,
Trinidad, Jamaica, Guyana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing from
Yep.
And
Yep.
these 3 ministers, none of them could see that particular point. It's not about Richard, it's about St. Vincent, but it's about the OECS. You understand what I'm saying? None of them could see it. So I was treated with contempt and disregard. But fine. My work would stand the test of time. And as old people say, I'm absolutely certain. My mother used to always say it. If I'm dead,
Hands could bring news.
hands could bring news. But one day these books will be part of Caribbean literary culture. It's only a matter of time.
Do you intend to push on, as Razam says, fight on, or do you intend to
Well, this
give
has
up the
always
fight?
been my life. My life has always been a life of struggle, of fight. You know, I said things that to you tonight that most people didn't know about me as a child. But I have never ever been a person who believed that an obstacle should discourage me. You see, for me, I think a lot of people make a mistake in thinking that life is a race. The moment you start to think, and everybody think that way, most people, not everybody, that life is a race, you know what? You always have to win. Because you're in a race. You understand? You always have to win. When you see life as a journey, what do? You travel. And you're always arriving and leaving. You're always arriving and leaving. So life for me is not a race. I don't have to win. You understand? What I have to do is to travel. And to do what? Enjoy the journey. That's why we travel. Yes. To accomplish a mission, not to win. So I don't have to win them. 3 ministers of education have ignored me in St. Vincent. You understand? I don't have to win them.
Well, here's what I would say, right? because I know the ministers of education. I know every minister of education since uh, John Hahn. I'm going all the way back, right? And more specifically, I know all the ministers of education on the labor, right? And so I would say
Mm,
that I don't think any minister of education on the labor that would ignore you. I would put forward the proposition
mm,
that with everything that is happening, their efforts may have fallen off. And so my own recommendation would be, I mean, the current Minister of Education, Curtis King, your friend, your partner, reach out to him. If you reached out to him before, reach out to him again, remind him, nudge him. I know you had emailed CXC, they asked you to send book, you send book, give them and so forth and so on, and nothing ever happened after that, and these books came free, you know. But especially with this new book out, I think maybe it's a good time to reignite or revisit
mm,
the process and hopefully get it moving again. And now you've resigned, so you have more time. So
mm,
you're not rushing to St. Vincent for 3 weeks and then rushing back to the UN, but you have more time in St. Vincent UN. You can actually follow up and so
mm,
forth. And if needs be, you're now in a position where the Minister of Education or one Prime Minister can make calls if possible. And if you have to now jump on a plane to have a meeting in any of the locations, you're now in the position to do that. So I think having decided that you've given up the UN to focus on this gives you a better opportunity now to make representation, possibly even in person, on a more aggressive way to get this thing done.
Well, um, let me say this. I said it before. I want to say it again. I'm honored that you would have me on set tonight. You didn't have to discuss this,
Yes.
right? And there are several reasons for this. One is your own appreciation for me as your friend, right? But more so your appreciation for this work and the other works that I have done.
Just
You know,
remember what you say, please. And I'm going to tell McGregor, because McGregor is cussing me, telling me that I'm making it sound like you're begging. Don't beg. If they do it, they do it. If they do it, they do it. Listen, McGregor, it take honey to catch fly. It take honey to catch fly. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
and this is out of appreciation for the work that I have produced. There are many other people like that. I can't call all of the names. I wouldn't call any. But these people tonight listening to me know this. Ambassador Bowman, Ambassador Bowman was the one, as I said, who said, this belong here. You understand what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
he was St. Vincent's representative. Ambassador Bowman advised me what I'm,
On the process.
yes,
Yeah.
what can be done and how it should be done and so on. I'm not putting her in any hot water. I'm just speaking the truth and things like that. And I I firmly believe that, seeing, I'll tell you this, and you've heard me say this before. Um, I say to everybody, everybody, without exception, take up Mama Stairs and choose any page whatsoever, and read that page. And if it doesn't make you inquire what went before and what will come after that page, don't buy it. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But I further said, and everybody who's listening to me tonight, know this. If you buy the story of Pauline Brandon and you don't like it, I will give you back your money double time. I'm saying this publicly now. That's how much faith I have in the work that I have produced. Because as you know, you've seen it yourself. And those have already bought this book. No. From Germany to wherever else in the world. People I don't know. Kenya, I don't know them. You understand? Grenada, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago. I've all said this is a contribution to world literature. You understand? I'm convinced I will not leave a job that I was paid so handsomely. You understand what I'm saying? And put my bread, cast my bread on the water, as your mother would
Mm,
say,
mm, mhm, mhm.
or would have said it if she was listening to us tonight, and cast my bread on the water. If I didn't believe in this, I know what I would, you know. One of the commentators on this book is a man named Andreas Schulte from Germany. And Andreas, you can read this short. He says this, that a new literary star has arrived in the sky. And he's equal to Toni Morrison, to James Baldwin, to Frank Fanon, etc., etc. He says it not. Oscar Ramos, a former deputy foreign minister in Cuba, said, this reminds me of Balzac. You know who's Balzac?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Find that text
All
for
right, we're going to
homework.
find out
You
about that.
understand? This
We don't
reminds me
know
of
them Balzac,
Balzac.
but we know them Bell too.
You know, I mean,
You know Bell too?
you know about that. But one of the commentators,
I know Balzac, but no Kuman, you know Kuman?
you know, that's the great thing I like about it. That when we had so much fun. It's it's never a boring moment with you, although you are boring, man. But anyway, it's another matter.
That's all right.
We'll get on
That's
to
all
it.
right. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
Somebody get
That's
me
all
here,
right.
it's very, very touchy. Anyway, and a journalist and commentator, whatever she is in Kenneth, because I don't know her personally. She said, I read this book, and the first thing that came to me was George Lamin in the Castle of Mask. It's all written there. You understand? And these people's names are there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is this, that I'm no prophet.
But you hope to make a profit?
No.
Oh, okay.
The statement says a prophet hath no honor
in his own
land.
Yeah.
And I'm no prophet. So how am I to get any honor?
All right, don't
You
worry.
understand? How am I
Listen,
to get any
you might not be a prophet, but we could make sure you make a profit. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. No, we've just. What do you think this investment will be?
Anyway, let me. I can't
What
see
is
the
it?
people. No, I can't see the people.
So here's the
So I
thing.
just want to say good night to everybody.
Rita Jack is on.
Whoever you are, and wherever you are, and I hope you're enjoying the program. And if you have any particular question, Sehon would
Rita Jack says that was a Bramble. She ended up related to Pauline Bramble. I don't know. you might be quicker related to Fritz Bramble.
But I hope everybody's enjoying the show because we're having a relaxing Sunday evening.
Toya is on, so you can say good evening to Toya.
No whiskey. He has coffee. I am a whiskey fellow. You know, but anyway.
That's between you and Koji, right?
I know if I know for sure one beautiful woman who is going to be here tonight is Toya. Don't I know husband he said next
No.
Be careful.
We've just gotten past the fourth hour of today's program. We were chatting with Richard. We're having a nice and I said to Richard, look, I want you on the show once the book is launched, but I don't want us to do the online thing, you know, with the StreamYard. I want us to be in the same place. So it's either I come, Aldon, it's either I come the small thing I took up. It's either I come Germany or you come to me. But it's smelly ratter because I'm a student. And you know, if I ever come Germany, I prefer you ticket. So he decided he ain't buying no ticket for me to come Germany. No, he can buy a ticket. That is my story, and I stick to it. That is my story.
The studio is here, and we have to transport. Transport is the word, right? The whole studio, cameras, lights, everything.
Yes.
And he said that is a little bit, you know.
Yes. And that is the truth. That is the truth.
And I felt it could damage the equipment.
That is true.
So we felt that the better thing to do,
the lighting, everything and so on, would have to be transformed.
The studio is in England.
Because
it was better for me to come to the studio. That's the truth of the matter.
My equipment, you know. My equipment. As I can see, my equipment, right?
Right.
So it would have been a little difficult to do that. So yes, and that is the truth. But yeah. So we are here and we're having a light discussion. We're looking at the launch of his new book, The Story of Pauline Bramble, Book 1, Springs, Blossom, and Young Thorns. And the fact that he says book 1 gives the indication that there are other books to follow. And he just said a while ago that he has a number of books in his head. We've been talking about the last book, or the first book actually, War Mama's Tears in Vain. And we just got through discussing the fact that the general consensus from people who've read it is that it belongs as a literary text, a historical text, to be studied by students who are doing their external exams and so forth.
I'm sorry, don't forget your thought. I just want to say this because Ambassador Bowman, she's probably asleep, I don't know. But she said this to me. She said, you know, I wish I was still teaching literature just to teach this book. Continue. I just had to say it.
And I can tell you my own experience as well. As I studied literature in secondary school. I didn't get it, but I studied it. And I could give you my own experience about reading both books. But we were talking about the last book, as I said, the first book, I keep saying last, but it's actually first one. And I think now is a perfect time because what is going to happen, and I'm speaking this into existence, what is going to happen now is that instead of having to go through the process of having one book and then trying to get another book on, we are going to have both books on at the same time. This is what is going to happen now. So we're going to have both Mama's Tears and the story of Pauline Bramble Book One on the CXC list by next year, September, for the students who are going to be studying. And that would now be the precursor because naturally, once Book One goes on, the other books are go on. So we have a great opportunity now to reignite this or revisit this situation and now have both books. Because I think also, Richard, the critical thing here now is that you are now seen as a prolific writer,
Yeah.
not someone who has written a book,
Yeah.
but now you have two books written, and there will be a third and there will be a
Yeah.
fourth. So I think
And this is just my literature books because
yes,
I've written
exactly,
legal work,
exactly. So I think now,
political work.
I think now is something. Now is the perfect time for us to revisit this. And I know you're going home soon. Make the necessary meetings, conversations happen so that this thing can be revisited and reignited so that by next year, September, the books are on the book list. Right? All right. So now we are moving to this new book, The Story of Pauline Bramble. Now, remember, like I said to you, the link is there. It's in the comments. It's on the screen. Log on to, let me log on to Amazon and you can buy the book there. And if you're in North America, if you're in the UK, and North America, of course, including Canada, there will be a book tour. Richard will be in your area, at least in a central area, and you'll be able to get the copy of your book signed. So,
As regards Canada, the plan is to go to Montreal, Toronto, of course, and Ottawa, all three cities during the independence period. And we can talk about that, but it's a great gift for independence because it tells our story.
we have Sherilyn Haywood on. That's Sherilyn
Yes,
Haywood,
yes,
the wife of Max,
yes.
the sister of Kojo.
Yes, and I actually told her that the book is published. I would have to be in touch with her because she had made some arrangement for me to speak to a Dr. Green who
Okay.
teaches literature or writing at one of the universities,
Yes.
black schools or
Yes.
something like that. But I'll definitely be in touch with her.
Without
because-
putting my foot in the mouth, I think Sherilyn is at Medgar.
Yes, I meant
Right.
that, right. That's
So,
the name. Yes. So she and I will be because she actually did read a part of this book because I spent what we call in Russian Chodnovik, the manuscript. But
Okay.
I think the Russian word is the better word because Chodnovik means it's kind of dirty, it's nasty with
the rough draft.
yeah, oh yeah, that's the word, the rough draft.
Right.
Yeah, that's the rough draft. I didn't know you have a degree in English language, and I now figure that out.
Listen to me. I come from Chateau. I can speaks. What about me say again? You walks here. Listen, you have to read this book. This book, reading this book took me through a roller coaster of emotions. I'm serious. I'm talking anger. I'm talking joy. I'm talking sadness. There are times when it's just comical. But in all of it, I tell you, especially for somebody who grew up in rural St. Vincent or is from rural St. Vincent, because I did spend a significant amount of time in urban St. Vincent as well.
But you went to high school in town.
Right. I went to primary school in town.
Yeah.
Right. I was able to relate the to what I was reading and even conjure up um in my mind's eye the scenes of what was happening, a boathouse day and walking down the street and so on and so on. Now, Richard,
Yeah.
Pauline Bramble.
Yes.
Who is Pauline Bramble? Fictional character or somebody that you actually know who's commercial telling?
No, you've asked many good questions tonight. I don't think you're going to ask a better question than this one. It's a brilliant question. I don't think you're going to ask a better question tonight.
Well, I said the question asker.
No, I'm telling you. And the reason for this is because Pauline Bramble is you, is me, is your grandmother, your great grandmother, your great great grandmother. Pauline Bramble is us. This is just a fictional character telling the story of a people who did all of the things you just said, who struggled, who cried, who was sad, who laughed, who had joys. You understand? What this story is, the protagonist, Pauline Bramble, is just a composite, of all the things that have made us who we are today. It is, and that's why it's called the story of Pauline Bramble. But you made a very important point. Book one. So how many more books? They're going to be four in all. And the subtitle is Spring's Blossom and Young Turns.
So we have 4 seasons.
So this is when she's young.
Mm-hmm.
The second book is going to be Summer, when she matures. The third book is Autumn. And the final book
Is a
is
winter.
Winter, when she dies. Let out the secret in terms of where we're going. Understand? So this book tells you of the story of Pauline Bramble only up to when she is 22 years old. So this book tells the story of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Caribbean, black people, and what we went through, but only up to 22 years, if you want to put it in human lifespan.
Yes.
But what happens, right? What happens beyond that? St. Vincent only got independence when? 1979. This year is the 45th year. You understand? Jamaica got it in early 60s. So to Trinidad, Guyana and Jamaica a little later, in Guyana and Barbados in 1966. You know, that's what happened. And everybody else followed. Those were the first four. Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and Guyana. Everybody else followed. You understand? But there was a story before that. And what is that story? You know. Sehon. Your mother name, well, for me, she's Mammy Marsha. Like, she's like my own mother to me. You understand? And think of yourself, you, Sehon, you, because as I say, Pauline Bramble is us. Think of yourself and think of what your mother told you about her own past and where you are today. You understand? And what that journey has been like. I don't know if she told you about your grandmother, meaning her mother. I don't know. You understand? But I can bet you any money you want in this world that her mother's life was a little bit more dismal. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Than hers was.
Mm-hmm.
And her life was a little bit more dismal than yours. It might make you uncomfortable that I'm saying it, but it is the truth. It is the truth. But in all of that, your grandmother, or great grandmother, was the spring. Because we had to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And today I am talking to the former press secretary of the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You understand? This Pauline Bramble is a woman. But you remember where I started? What did I say? You asked me why Mama Stairs were called Mama Stairs. And what did I say? Because the foundation of our civilization is woman. Nobody, I would argue with anybody over that issue until I'm dead. And so, this is the story. You understand? Because it's them. It's them who carry it more than anybody else. And so, Pauline Bramble is a story that I promise you, and you know it. You told me you read certain parts and it moved you. There are people who read it and came back to me and said, I cried like a child. Understand? Because you realize I'm not talking about some abstract figure. Some imagination out of the mind of Richard Byron-Cox. You understand? I am talking about the life of a people who started a march in chains They came across the Atlantic in chains, and who today are free, but who must make the best out of that freedom. That's what it's about.
One of the things about both your books
Yes.
that really stood out to me is your use of the dialect in
Yes.
dialogue.
Yes.
But more than that, the switch.
Yes.
Now, I remember when I went to teachers college, um, one of the things that I learned,
Yes.
and I learned this from Carlton Hall, who lectured
City.
me at the time.
Yes. The great city.
He said, because you grew up in Chateaubelair,
Yes.
and so in the country,
Yes.
you talk dialect.
Yeah.
And let me say this, because I know Vincentians like to think that country is windward and there's leeward, but country is country as opposed to tongue. So
Yeah.
whether leeward or windward is country, right? So you grew up in Chateaubelair dialect,
Yeah.
and then you go to tongue as a little boy, and my dilemma was you go to tongue and you've been mocked in tongue
Yeah.
because you talk bad,
Yeah.
and you go home and you're mocked because you talk dicks, right? You fight for talking style, you fight for talk dicks. But and so my mother and many mothers and parents like them speak properly, you need to speak properly, you're speaking so bad. And we learned that we were taught, we were made to feel that speaking dialect was speaking bad, and it was shunned. And then I go to college and I learn, no, it's expression,
Yeah.
and no language is superior to the other,
Yeah.
because whatever can be expressed in one can be
Yeah.
expressed in the other. And so I can ask in the IAE, as I learned in college, it's supposed to be called the Internationally Accepted English. Where are you going? But while I would ask you that in Kingstown in Montrose, where are you going? If I'm in Chateaubelair, I'd ask, where you go? Where you go?
Yeah.
Where you go? Where you go? There is this really expert use of the dialect in dialogue, but also the switching. And your book, as you mentioned, was read by a number of individuals who are unfamiliar with our dialect.
Yeah.
How are you managing that
Yeah.
in both Bo Mama Stairs and now Pauline Bramble?
Well, Pauline Bramble has more than Mama Stairs because it's a big book, and it's one story. Mama Stairs is a collection of stories. But interestingly, if you look at the very first comment, right? Because as you know, the first 3 or 4 pages, I don't know, of this book have comments from around the world. And the first comment comes from an Indian lady, right? And she is fluent. She's a translator of French, Spanish, and so on, right? And she says this: "What I love is the dialect. I wish the Indian writers would be able to do that." You understand what I'm saying? I mentioned Andreas Schulter, the German blogger and sociologist, and again, he just loves the mixture of the Caribbean English, because you see, what I'm trying to do, and this is why I was so disappointed in those 3 ministers, right? Because language is the medium through which we share culture, first and foremost. You understand? We share through music and dance and so on. But the first medium through which we share culture is language.
Yes.
And when you write about your Caribbean, when you write about St. Vincent, and you cannot use the beautiful Vincentian dialect, something is wrong. I mean, no, me not understand that. Me not understand.
I forget about that. Me have forget about that. Me have forget out. Me have forget this year. Me have forget this year. Sherilyn says, Sehon, you ain't lying. I almost got banned from going back to Chateau after spending a whole summer and then go back to water. I like come back talking bad.
No, there is no way for me to share with the rest of the world, which is what I'm trying to do. The struggle, the pain, the culture, and everything else without using the people's voice. You understand? Shakespeare is a British voice. Dickens is a British voice. But if you read Dickens, right? if you read Dickens, whether it's Great Expectation, whether it's Oliver Twist, whether it's Hard Times, whether it's Tale of Two Cities, whatever. Because I've read a lot, a lot. As a matter of fact, I have Dickens right in my bag.
Mm.
That's what I was reading when I was coming on the plane. Because I love Dickens, right? But you would see him use the dialect of the period, because that is how you express the soul of the people. And I cannot for the life of me um understand that I'm talking of the Caribbean people. I'm sharing the culture of the Caribbean people. I'm sharing the suffering of the Caribbean people, and I'm going to use somebody else's voice to do it. That doesn't make sense to me, sir. It's like I listen to you talk, meaning I watch you cook and so on, and there's just this genuine thing that only somebody from St. Vincent, only somebody from Chateau could do that. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And for you to do it otherwise is to be false. You understand?
Mhm.
But more than anything else, to be seen, is to betray what and who you are. You understand?
Mhm.
So for me to be able to share the Vincentian culture and to let people know what is the Vinciness in us, it has to come out in this literature. It has to come out.
And it's interesting, Richard, because you read what's the name? Colonization Reverse. What's the name?
Louise Bennett.
Louis Bennett. You read Hurricane. You
Yes.
read
And
different
Chris
books, right? You get the Jamaican dialect in
Yeah.
their book, and we accept it. We read all the lit books,
Yes.
and we read the Jamaican dialect, the Guyanese dialect, or what have you. So, is there a space for all dialect as you bring forth these works of literature, and more so, should this or is it your hope that this would create an appreciation for a dialect where no, look, it's amazing. We sing Jamaican songs, whether it's a dancehall
Mm.
or the religious lovers rock or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and it's done in their dialect and it's appreciated. However, when it's our turn, have you ever heard? Have you ever heard? We are Calypso man.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I like Tajo, but it's diction," and the suggestion is that the judges in park going to sit down and mark down Tajo for diction
Mm.
in a calypso. Really?
Well,
Isn't that a part of
yeah.
the Vincentianist? I can know from somebody whether they're from South Rivers, Fancy,
Mm. Yeah.
Kingstown,
Yeah.
based on the accent and the dialect and the
Yeah. Yeah.
diction. That's who we are.
You know, I'm going to. I'm really glad that you have taken us down this road because I'm going to demonstrate something to you. The man who the world knew as Calypso King of the World for a long time was inspired. Is a man named Harry Belafonte, a Jamaican, right? You know what make him famous for us? Me say they, daylight come and me want go home. He didn't say I want to go home.
Right.
And the whole world,
Love that.
he sold millions. He never said daylight has come and
And
I
I want
want
to
to
go
go
home.
home. Me say, daylight come and me want go home. And the whole world accepted. You hear me?
Yes.
No. This is the whole thing. There is no way that Harry Belafonte could have told the world about our shipping of bananas using so-called, as you say, internationally accepted English. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And he goes on, come Mr. Tallyman, come
Tally
tally
me
me banana. Daylight come and you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right? Because to tell the story of a people truly, you have to tell it in their language. You have to let them speak. You understand? Or otherwise, you falsify the thing.
Yeah.
You falsify the thing. So it is not only that I want people to understand our dialect and to appreciate it. There are two other things I want. These are more important to me. One, I want people to understand that we know our culture is different from yours, but it ain't less, it ain't worse. You understand?
Yes.
It ain't worse, right? That's one thing I want us to be able to be proud of. You understand? But more importantly, that we ourselves would not only appreciate our dialect, not only appreciate our culture, but appreciate where we came from. You understand?
Mhm.
And how we got here. Listen, you know, the only new instrument developed over the last 120, 30 years
Band.
is the steel band.
Yeah.
Guess, you know what, right? So we have to discuss that. But it's ours. And guess what now? They have steel band factory in Sweden.
Uh,
And in Finland, men can steel band. You understand what I'm saying? Sean, Paul, and Shaggy, and the men don't sing in English. The man singing in their own thing. You understand?
yeah.
Unless we become proud of what we are, who we are, where we came from, and until people like me and you and others who write, you understand, put it in these works and let our children understand. Where are we going? Papioi? You understand? We are always complaining about how American culture binding our children.
But at the
yet
same time, we
ministers
hiding
of
out.
education
We hiding out.
refuse to do anything so that Mama Stairs could get on to CXC. 3 ministers of education refused.
What level of research, Richard? I mean, the story that you told of Pauline Bramble, as I said, this book has there's one main character, Pauline Bramble, but there's so many different stories
Yes.
all connected. What level of research you did? Because there are a number of things. There was one story where I can't remember the name of the husband now, but he had a daughter, and the daughter apparently got into the Adventist church. Well, not apparently
Sandy
Sandy,
is Pauline's father.
Sandy's daughter got into the
Pauline
Adventist
is Melanie.
church,
Yeah.
and he and the pastor had a discussion about pork and how pork sweet, you know. And to me, that to me, because I grew up Seventh Day Adventist, and so that discussion to me is one that I could relate to because I always had it. But see, how you gonna know? You ever eat pork? No. How you know how pork tastes and how you know it tastes sweet and so on and so forth. That was something. And there are other stories that contain a certain level of detail, Richard, that said to me, you have to have done some research. What's the level of research?
Yes. Pauline Bramble was written over 12 years. It took me 12 years to write this book.
Okay.
Right? And the thing about me and writing books and everything, I come back to Ambassador Bowman about this, right? Because she figured it out. I tell you, our history, the history of sociology, the history of economics, okay, the history of our philosophy. Because a lot of people believe, unless you write philosophy down on a piece of paper, it ain't philosophy. That's nonsense, right? And Lewis Gordon, who I believe is the greatest black philosopher alive today, tells you that. Now, when old people see, and let me see if you could finish it. When old people say, I ain't better cock than you, bro. Finish that, give me now. Finish that.
They all end up in a pillow.
They're still wind up in pillow. This is profound philosophy. This is profound philosophy.
But
it's not written down in any
even
book
tonight, you were
anywhere.
talking about something, and you were when I said it to you, and you were like, "Oh wait, you know what? I can't remember what it was that you had said."
You know, right? Yeah. And that is profound philosophy from our elders. I hear better cock than you, bro, but they still wind up in pillow. You know, and when you are writing something like this, and you want to teach your people something, but you want them to enjoy it as well. So, for example, I tell you precisely of the American Civil War. Yes, I'm telling you about it there, in the book. And Pauline's grandmother, whose name is Mama Clarice, say, well, them will have a war in America, and the king and to free black people, and the slave from Antigua, Nenin, right, who brought her up. Nenin say, is the time when I born. So immediately, you know what? Pauline's grandmother was born around 1860. And then she goes on to say, And the big man over there, the king, but they don't call him king, but he's the biggest man in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln. He was killed. The big man over there get killed. And all of that is exact and precise history. You understand? But I don't call Lincoln name and I don't call the year. But I'm teaching you history. You understand what I'm saying? For example, I go on to deal with the 1935 riots in St. Vincent. Okay? Because Pauline goes to the courthouse, you understand, and sit down under there and so on with her little son, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And she remembers that her grandmother told her, or she remembers that, the story that, oh, this was the place where the riot happened, and so on and so on. And so you know that this is 1935. I'm telling you the story of St. Vincent, the history of St. Vincent. But I'm telling you in such a fascinating way. It's literature, right? Most people don't know this. But the Mighty Radio, Roaring Lion, and these Calypsonians came to St. Vincent in 1932, 1933. In Calypso tent. And that is when Ghost carry Chinese to the Calypso tent. You just have to go and look it up, and you would see that the Roaring Lion and those guys came to St. Vincent, understand, in 1932, 1933 to perform Calypso tent. It is written history. But I'm telling you that without, you understand? And so you're learning the history of St. Vincent, but through this wonderful literature that I spread out. Because remember, that's how he carry ideas. You understand? How he and ideas. You remember the expression, how they get in? Yeah. That's how he and ideas get in. You understand? So let's answer your question. Yes. The point is a long time to research things. You understand? So I had enough time. As you know, I had quite a high power job at the United Nations, and so what would happen is that I get home, do my exercise, take a shower, and then I would begin to do research from say 10 until 5. I would research for a long time, sometimes for periods of 6 months, right? Put all of this research in a particular kind of jigsaw, okay, kind of puzzle, and then I do the writing of it, and then I continue. So it took 12 years.
Because, as I said, the level of detail in religion, in history,
Yeah.
in
I researched it all, yes.
did require.
Yes, I researched
Look,
it all.
as I said, you would be amazed by the level of detail. And one of the things I challenge anyone who buys this book to do is to try and figure out which village you're talking about. Because as you read the book, you would be sure that in your mind's eye, you see it. I know what you're talking about. You're probably talking about this village or that village in Sharps or in Spring or and so forth. So try and figure it, try and make it come to life
Yes.
in your mind as you read.
Sian, may I add these two things to you? And this is so fascinating. Now, a lot of people don't know, and I don't want to let out it, but let me just say this. If anybody would want me to read anything from the book, just to the page.
You should. No.
Right.
And I'm going to give you that opportunity to do some reading as well.
Right. But
Right?
anyway, what I want to say is two things. Now, in the story, I mentioned Middle Street, and I mentioned big book bar. You understand? One of the persons who read this book, who I sent the
Manuscript. You
the
have draft.
manuscript. She said, Jesus, me uncle talking about. I feel so shame. But it's not in the book. And she said, it's me uncle bar. The woman used to go down there to and go and they're away. My dear, see, and this is a woman I love. You understand? This is a cultural icon of St. Vincent. You know who the person is. I wouldn't call her name, but her name is in the book because she reviewed the book. And she said, Richard is my uncle. Is he only man? Because I had a place in town named Bucky. Next thing now, I wouldn't call him again.
Call name I go so.
Somebody else read the book. Right? I took this person to lunch. And I started to talk about, I don't know if you know this, in Kingston, before you had the central
Market.
sewage system,
Okay.
right? In those days, what happened, and this is the truth, and anybody who knows history of Indians will tell you this,
Coach, you could tell me. Tell me, Coach.
right? They used to have a latrine, and the latrine would have a pit like 4 feet deep, and they put a bucket. We used to call it like a lap bucket, biscuit tin in it. And you went and did your business, and then you had people who had to go and take that out and throw it away. You see, and I sent him up to the southern division. The southern division, I said, I'm young, that much. I don't see it. I felt embarrassed. I want to remove the entire part.
But doesn't it?
But it makes up the book.
Yeah.
You see, that's your girl. I mean, your girl. He used to do, because they used to call it night soil. Understand? The upper class in Kingston would call it night soil. Where these men went and take out that bucket, carry it in the sea, throw anything, wash the bucket.
And then came out the bucket.
Boy, I tell you,
Yeah, that's not the job I wanted to. That's not the, by the way, Gregor, I didn't respond to your comment. You were talking about the play that was written by Howie Prince, Bitter End.
Yes.
That included people like Maurice Hahn,
yes, I know.
Ronnie Marx, and so on and so on. It's a classic. It's a Vincentian classic. And as a matter of fact, he was asking me, I mean, now, mind you, Pauline Bramlin's song going up on Netflix. We know about that. And my share.
Well, actually, don't forget what you're saying, but actually, that's one of the first things. Ambassador's comment is there, Ambassador Bowman, and she says, I see this becoming a fantastic film. It's there in the book because her comments, as you know, I put the comments of these people in the book. It's there. This is going to be a great film. So, but continue.
Right. So he's asking, and the question popped up as well as he mentioned it. Is that something that you think you could probably get into?
Yes.
You have some playwrights. You have the Darky and so on, and Blaze and others who do that in St. Vincent and Grenadines. And they're younger playwrights coming up. But is that something that you think you could also get involved in?
Well, I actually wrote 2 plays in my life. My first actual story, which will come out in the collection of stories on the book I told you about, Tati Jane and the Rum Bottle, right? I wrote 2 plays. These were written when I was still a teenager, and so I would have to brush them up. But I wrote this story, The Christmas Recitation, when I was 17 years old. No, I wrote it when I was 15 years old, but it was done on radio by me when I was 17. And I look back at it today now, I have it. And it's still as if I have written the story just yesterday. And I can't imagine at 17, I was able not just to conceptualize that story, but to put it down in words, which I am not going to change. I'm not going to change a single word of that story. I am a man. I'm many, many years older than I was when I was 70. You understand? So the profoundness of my thought at the time, and these 2 plays that I wrote, they were both written when I was 19 years old. And the person who inspired me to write this, and he's going to be shocked to hear this, is actually Cecil Blazer Williams. He inspired me because they had something called NAM, the New Artist Movement.
Yes.
And you had Cecil and Jeff James and these people, and they came up to shops and was teaching us what is downstage, what is left stage, what is center stage, all these things. So William and Jeff James and these people did these things, and we had some lessons in the construction of the play. And I think, oh, I could do this, because if I have written poetry, I have written stories. What's so difficult about this? You understand? But then what happened was this, and this is the only English influence probably. I had done Julius Caesar, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, all of these things, right? Taming of Shrew and A Midsummer's Night Dream, all of these by Shakespeare.
Okay.
And I looked at this and I said, this is actually easier than writing prose because it's just a series of poems. That's how I thought it. It's a series of poems. And that's how I constructed playwriting. That's okay.
Mm. If by now you haven't figured it out, we have Richard live in studio with us chatting about his new book, The Story of Pauline Bramble. Book one, Spring's Blossom and Young Thorns. This book follows the first book, critically acclaimed, Oh Mama's Tears in Vain. Now, if you don't have Mama's Tears, you need to go and get Mama's Tears and get this book. It's already out. It's on Amazon. The link is there in the comments. Just go click on the link, and you're able to access the book immediately. It's a fantastic gift. It's a birthday gift, a Independence gift, a Christmas gift, a Valentine's gift, an anniversary gift. It's a perfect gift for that person who loves to read, who's into reading, and someone who's interested in Caribbean culture, Vincentian culture, Vincentian history, Vincentian sociology. This is the book. I'm going to give Richard an opportunity to read excerpts of the book so that you can get a taste of what is there. We give you samples. You go in a supermarket and a company is launching some new delights, hors d'oeuvres, what have you. And there's this little lady or guy in a corner with some toothpicks, just sticking a little piece and giving it to eat. And if you licorice, you go and come back and get another one. Well, we're going to hand you the toothpicks now with snippets of this fantastic book. And you're going to hear for yourself from the author as he narrates excerpts of the book, and you can decide whether or not you would want to get it. And I am confident that by the end of this show, you would decide to get the book. All right. So let me thank all of you who have joined us and stayed with us. The numbers are going up and coming down as people log on, log off, and I'm happy for that. And I thank you for those of you who shared. Really appreciate the assistance because I believe that this book is worthy of your interests. I honestly and do genuinely believe that. And if you don't get it, you're doing yourself a serious disservice. All right. So Richard, this is the book. It's actually mine, eh? It's actually mine. But I'm going to allow you to read my book,
Yes, okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you can take a
But and
no, mind you, I have the soft copy, but I'm going to purchase. And yes, you heard me right. Richard is my brother. He's my friend, but I expect him to give me. I'm going to go and purchase as well the hardcover book on Amazon. So listen, it's a labor of love, and he's doing it. It's an investment, and so if you're interested in it, get a copy of it. It's on Amazon. The link is there. Please go get the book and begin reading. As as we as Richard selects the excerpt that he's going
this
to
is
read.
this is what I wanted to say. I'd like to invite anybody who would like. You can just name a page you want me to read because I did not choose anything, and if you want me to read any particular thing,
No, man, just
right?
read,
But
read. Because I'll tell you
there's
this.
just so much.
I'm almost done with the book, as I said, because no, and here's the thing, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but Richard understands, he's more understanding than I am. Richard sent me the manuscript at the same time when I was studying. I was doing my LLB at home, so I started to read, but I had so much studying to do because I was doing this independently. And for those of you who didn't know, I did my LLB over 3 years from 2020 to 2023. And as soon as I got my results to my LLB in August, I applied for law school, and now I'm doing the bar in January. So there has really been very little space where I had free time. And here I have so much reading and work to do at the bar that casual reading I really don't have. I cannot. Richard will tell you, he's been here all weekend, and he could tell you and attest to the level of and detail of the work I'm doing. So I've not been able to complete the book, but I've read most of it, and I can tell you any book, any story. Let me do the one, the slave from Antigua. Do the excerpt of the slave
That's
from Antigua.
Linen the slave from
Yes,
Antigua. Okay, let me find the page.
give us an excerpt from
Okay.
that, because that was one of my more emotional stories. That one gave me the greatest roller coaster of emotions because I
Okay.
actually got very very angry in that story,
You got
very angry. So give us an excerpt from that
Linen the
one.
state. Hold on, what chapter is that now? Because as I said, I did not. Okay, so that's chapter 10, page 212. Before I do that, may I just read a little bit from something here?
Okay.
So, as I said to you all before, I challenge you to read any page of this book, any page. And if it doesn't make you want to find out what happened before and what will happen after, then don't buy the book.
Listen, we just be on morning school.
Yeah.
Well, morning school is on our program.
Okay. Okay. Now, this comes from chapter 5, and which is called the. Oh my God! Just give me a second. Yeah, chapter 5 is called no. This is from chapter 4, an evil virgin redemption. Just going to read a short part for you. As John B. entered the watch house, the memory of that first day was standing in front of him. Yet it was far off, as if having the nature of a spirit. He could virtually see it looking at him all the way from heaven with despise, while still being very present in front of him. He recalled Mali's words of sanction when he, during childhood, would unwillingly admit to some wrong he did and was trying to cover it up. John, she would say, a guilty conscience never lies. You could run, but you can't hide from your conscience. Your sin will find you out sooner or later. Yes, his sins were here now, mocking him most contemptuously. He remembered how she tried to scream, how she tried to fight him off. He remembered when it was all over how much she cried, heartbroken. Now he felt sick to his stomach. Yes, the memories. The memories had become a contemptuous zombie, so he knew he had to do it. The memories that were now facing him in the watch house had not left him alone, not once, since the day when Inez had declared most scornfully, all unfair game, half a play over. Those memories had woken him up at night, demanding that he face his sins, and so he had to do it. They constantly reminded him that he could hide the truth from everyone in the village, but he couldn't hide from it, for it will pursue him. It was always, it would always be with him, and this is why he must do it. He could hear it shouting at him, you must do it! You must do it! You must do it! He bent over and took out the yellow jug from under the wooden bench he was sitting on. He opened the jug. Yes, the smell was horrible. So he closed it back. He opened the sack he had brought with him and took out the 2 bottles of Jack Iron. The taste of the rum would be needed because the smell from the yellow jug is horrible. He broke the seal of one of the bottles and put it to his mouth and drank. The alcohol felt very warm, in fact, hot in his empty stomach. So this is from chapter 4, and now I will read something from chapter 10, Nenin, the slave from Antigua, page 212. It's a big book, Sienna.
It is a big book. It is a big book.
It's a big book.
I was surprised by the size of the book.
It's a big book. Okay. So yes. So Sienna wants us to read this. Let me see. Um,
Richard, I'm with Richard. He's reading from his book. So he's looking for a section that I asked him to read. If you have any questions, I realize that our audience is just there listening, taking in discussion. And I'm really happy for that. And more than anything else, I would just want you guys to just go and get that book because it's going to be worth your reading. It's really a lesson in history, in language, in sociology, in literature. So
Okay.
really, it's a book worth your buying.
Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit, and now this is what Sian loves so much. The dialogue as well is going to be involved here because what I just read was narration
Yes,
rather than dialogue.
yes.
So now we take something with dialogue. And so this is Pauline, and she's speaking to her grandmother, who is a major character in the book. Mama Clarice, now you're talking about slavery. Tell me something about it. I mean anything. Well, I don't really know much about it, but what do you want to know? What is a slave? I mean, them being people, right? Oh yes, slaves was people, but black people who come from Africa. White people bring them here to work on the sugar, tobacco, and cotton plantation. So them being no white people who been slave? No, all the slave being black people from Africa. So why no white people be enslaved? Well, white people is white people. So white people never be enslaved? No. So why black people be enslaved and not white people? Well, I don't know, but I think it's because of the color. But people is people, and the best people I know is black people. Them is real kind people. So if the black people being people, why them call them slave? Is because them being black and come from Africa? Yes and no. Are black people being people, but they being called slave because them was not free. Them have to do what the master tell them. So because them have to do what the master tell them being slave, ask Pauline, and then I have to do what mommy and papi tell me. So I is a slave? Oh no, no, big child. Slave work for nothing. Them being like donkey and mule. Them work for nothing. Them never get paid. You is your mommy and papi child. Them take care of you. Them send you school, buy you clothes, food, and all them things. Slave work for nothing. Really? You mean them work and never get paid? Never get a half penny. Not a halfpenny copper.
Nothing to.
So who them work for? White people, of course. White people? Yes, white people. People like Mr. Nicholson, Mr. Bernard, Mr. Delaware, and them grandfather and great grandfather. And them never pity black people, and them not one red halfpenny copper. Pauline did not understand any of this. How could this be that people worked and were never paid? Some of my Clarice, them work for free, no money at all? Nothing at all. No money, nothing at all. So why the black people do it? Them being stupid, said Pauline, the disgust in her tone. I used to think so too. That is stupid, them is stupid. But them ain't being stupid. Them do it because them want to live. The white people beat them to death if them refuse to work. It is easy to say them being stupid because me and you ain't in them situation. If you've been in them situation, you might not think that them being stupid because it's not easy when you know somebody going to beat you to death if you protest. How you mean beat them to death? You mean kill them? Yes, kill them. Them white people kill them black people plenty horrible way. Horrible, horrible way. And they make black people frightened. And so they never work to want them work because they want to save them life. Them work for nothing. Them was slave. But not all of them was caught. Some used to fight. But then white people will get even more wicked and do them the wickedest thing you could think about.
And that's the story. And then the slave from Antigua. Listen, when I tell you that particular story evoked serious emotions as I read, believe me. Now, Marlon wants to know if it'll be available in stores. Marlon, they should be in October. Books should be available in stores in
Yes,
the warehouse.
books have been ordered, and thanks for the question because it gives me an opportunity to tell you that books would be available at Games Bookshop, at Corey City Store, at Giggles Boutique at the airport, and one other place. What's the other place? Oh, and at Jazzy's
The cruise ship.
at the cruise ship berth. So you'll be able to buy the books. I hope they will be there in the next week and a half max, and it would make a fantastic gift for Independence if you want to buy one for a friend. But please do get this book. I probably shouldn't disclose this, but so far it has cost me 25,000 US dollars to publish this work.
The publishing ain't cheap.
And I did this because Beckett, thanks to him, I learned one thing. Beckett did his own record label, cocoa labels and so on. And he said this: you must do for self. Don't let anybody do for you. And I learned that from Beckett, from Dr. Alston Beckett Cyrus. And so I had 6 offers, but you wouldn't imagine the best that I was offered was 15 cents out of the dollar. So I created this book and they would take 85 cents. And that was the best. There were those who were ridiculous enough to offer me 5 cents out of the dollar. I couldn't do that. You understand? I left the United Nations to do this work. And so I published this book myself. Up to now, and it's going to cost me more, CNOs. because I'm going to be traveling, doing book tours. I have to pay for all of that, hotels, etc. But it's not about the money. To be honest, it's about the principle. But yes, the books will be available in St. Vincent. The other thing I want to say, Sian, as we talk about that, is that, as Sian has said, I would be in North America, Canada, and the United States. And so, those of you who can buy the book online, I'll be signing them there. I will bring some books as well with me, but I prefer that you buy them online and I will sign them.
Yeah, because
I'll be attending the
it'll be too
gala.
bulky,
Yes,
too bulky if you
yes,
can't bring them with
right.
you.
It's too
Yeah.
that's too expensive. So I will be at the galas in New York and in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, and therefore I would sign the books as well. And thank you in advance for doing that.
All right. Richard, thank you very much. And Marlon, thank you so much for your question. And Marlon is a writer himself, a poet.
Okay.
Marlon Joseph.
Oh, it's Marlon
Yes,
Joseph.
yes,
Hey,
yes,
good.
yes, yes,
How you doing, Marlon?
So,
Yeah.
Miss Aaron, Miss Nicole, I got bald because I got bald since I got here because it is too expensive for haircuts. So I shaved my head myself. Just so you know, that's the story behind it. There's nothing else. I'm not going bald. When I go back to St. Vincent, I can grow back my hair and I'll be fine. Right? But Richard, we've come to the end of 2 hours.
Yeah.
Whether or not you believe it,
Yeah.
time has really flown.
Yes.
And I'd like to thank you very much for giving me the honor and the pleasure of doing this. This is the first one you've done,
Yes.
and it's done here.
Yes.
All the others, Scoop and everybody else,
Yes.
coming after. This is the first one,
Yes.
and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for all those of you who logged on and stayed for the entire time, and those who went and came back and so on. Because I know it's your phone you're using, and if you had a tech phone call, you gotta check your phone, whatever. So I really appreciate the audience. Thank you so much, and I really urge you, support this project. Support this celebration of our Vincentianness, of our Vincentian culture, of who we are as a people. You would not regret it. It's available on Amazon for those of you who live overseas.
And many other you just put my name in
Yes.
or the book name, put the book name into Google search
and it will pop up.
Barnes and Noble.
Right.
You can buy it any place.
Right.
You can buy it from
So you
different
could-
places.
yes. And there's hardcover. There's the Kindle version if you want that. So there are different versions. You don't have to just buy the paper version at all. Which is going to be doing his bit traveling, publishing, and promoting this book. Give him all the support, give him all the love, but most importantly, give him that sale. Because listen, the success of the book right now depends on all of us.
Yeah.
Richard,
Yes.
final words.
Yes, I just want to thank everybody who's joined us on the live tonight. Those of you who share this program, because as you all know, Sian and I should say, work very hard in trying to get people to follow us tonight. And I really, really want to thank all of you who shared the information. I want to thank all of you who bought the book so far, and those of you who plan to buy the book, please do so. And more than anything else, I want to say to all of you, please believe me when I say this book is going to lead you down a road of self-discovery that you never knew before. And when we all think, as Sian asked me, he said, how much research? When I thought I knew so much about myself and my people, my research for this book told me there's so much more to know. I'm offering that to you. Thank you again, Sian. It was a tremendous honor and pleasure.
Thank you very much, buddy. Yeah. All right. Until next week, when we're back with, what's your name? Sehon Settie? Sunday Settie. Sunday Settie with Sehon.
Yes.
Until then, have yourself a fantastic evening. Take care.